We all know Ark Survival Evolved isn't in the best state right now. But how did it get there? In this video I'm going to be going through all the different ways Ark might have got to this point, not just the recent ones but also the earlier ones. Now Ark Survival Evolved first came out on June 2nd, 2015 for early access, before going on loads of different platforms later on down the line. Now the first issue that's plagued Ark for its entire life is cheating. Cheating has literally been in the game its entire lifespan. It's basically become part of the game. There's so many ways to cheat in Ark, it's unreal. I've been playing Ark for about, well, since 2016, so a year after its release date, so it's been quite a while. Now, I can name probably about 5 ways of cheating. You've got, first of all, you've got duping, then you've got meshing, then you've got aimbot, then you've got unfair aimbot, and then you've got speed hacks, so there's a lot. And you can probably think of any hacks, and you've probably got them in Ark. Now, the first thing I can remember just destroying Ark was duping, because duping, well, what's the point of grinding if you're just going to be able to multiply anything you've got? This, that's all it was. Now, they did fix it eventually, but it did take a while. You can still dupe, and there is some other ways of duping now, but it's just not as easy. Now, the next big one is meshing. So, what's the point in trying to raid someone legit if you can just go onto the map and raid someone? It got that bad that when I played Small Tribes, we just called it Mesh Wars because you couldn't actually play the game properly. So that made a lot of people quit from Small Tribes, move to non-deady servers, where it can be policed by the server owners instead of the Ark devs. After about 2 to 3 years, Wildcard finally brought in a fix and put death barriers under the map. So if you try to go through the map, you just die instantly. Obviously, this helped bring players back, but at the same time, you used to just fall through the map all the time and die instantly. So, yeah. Obviously, you've got loads more cheats, as I said before, like aimbot, unfair aimbot, and speed hacks, which kind of ruin PvP altogether. But on top of that, you've got DDoSing. Now, DDoSing was actually one of the worst exploits during Ark's time, I guess. Especially when people moved to non-deady servers. Non-deady servers started to become a profit. For example, say you've got 2 Xbox servers doing really well. They end up both just getting DOSed by one another because they both want more players. Or some randomers just DOSed the server anyway because they found it funny. But it was unplayable. And the same happened in Official when, say someone was getting raided, they just DOS the entire server to make it basically unplayable so they couldn't raid you. But if you're like me, I just put up with the DDoSing and just tried to get on with it, but a lot of people quit due to this. Now, cheating is one of the reasons a lot of people quit Ark and are fed up with it. But another reason is delays. Now, if you're new to Ark or you haven't played Ark before, you might not know that through Ark's lifecycle there's been so many delays. Now, it's actually just a thing that happens. Obviously, it's important they polish off things before they release anything. And I've got to give it to them. Most of the DLCs I've played, I really enjoyed. Apart from Genesis, because I absolutely hate Genesis. But that's because I'm a PvP player. But I just don't remember many DLCs without a delay. The only one I think I can remember is Extinction. So if we look at this very dodgy timetable, we can see all the delays that I remember anyway. First, we've got Aberration, which was supposed to be released in October, then got delayed to November, but then finally released in December. Now, Genesis Part 1. It was supposed to come out in December 2019, but then was delayed to January 2020. But then it was a firm release on February the 25th. And next up is Genesis Part 2, which was supposed to come out on March 2021. It was thought to come out before that, but due to COVID it was delayed till that summer. It was then pushed back to May 22nd of that year, and then pushed back to June 2nd. But then finally pushed back an extra day to June the 3rd before it eventually released. Finally, Ark 2. Now, the original release date was 2022. Obviously, that was quite ambitious and was delayed to 2023 this summer. But now it's been delayed to the end of 2024. So another 2 delays before the final one. And that might not even be the actual date. It might be delayed again. But we'll get on to Ark 2 and everything else later on. Now, there are a lot of other delays that I've probably missed out, such as the original Ark release, the Ragnarok map release, and when it was released it was only half done, and Atlas release, which isn't Ark but made by the same developers, and more. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is the pure glitchiness of the game. For example, if I throw a spear at a creature's forehead, I want it to hit, not just stick in it and not do anything. I also do not want my creatures looking like a porcupine full of spears before one finally hits. If you had a fight with Nycpheornis, it's like the worst fight ever because you can't hit it. You've got no hitbox. In general, other players are probably the most glitchy things in Ark, just teleporting around, zipping around from rubber banding, from lag, extra speed and whatever. But it does make the game quite funny at times, even though it can get quite annoying. Another main glitch is just crashing altogether. Like, I've crashed so many times it's unreal. Mainly on Xbox. When I went onto PC, it was a lot better. But I'd say I crashed about 25 times a day on it. And it also doesn't help when you crash and someone steals your stuff, or you get eaten alive by a random creature. And on top of that, you've just got falling through the mesh, or falling through the floor, or getting your character stuck in the floor. There's so many of that. It's just a common occurrence now. Like, the amount of times I've logged off, come back online, realise I'm dead for some reason. Turns out my character fell through the mesh and died from the death barrier that they implemented to fix meshing. But overall, Ark is known for its glitchiness, and the people that play it kind of get over that. It's quite a fun game anyway, even though it's so glitchy, it does make it funny. It's just part of the game now. Now, the final thing before we get onto the recent stuff that's causing havoc in Ark, and it's just the player gap and player base, basically now. Because people that played Ark have played for such a long time, there's such a gap in level from newer players. So newer players wanting to play PvP will really struggle, and most of the time Alpha Tribes will just wipe everyone. Now, there's nothing really Wildcard can do about that. That's another reason a lot of new players struggle to play the game and why it's constantly dying. But I can remember even in 2016, I got raided about 600 times before I finally managed to get a base that lasted at least 2 weeks. But that is why a lot of newer players do struggle like getting into the game. Obviously PvE is a lot different and it's a lot more enjoyable if you're new to the game. And also it's a much nicer community on there compared to PvP. Now let's get to the most recent stuff that's actually affected Ark. And that is Ark Ascended and Ark 2. And even the TV show. So obviously we all know Ark 2's been delayed again. But we all knew that was going to happen because we haven't seen any gameplay this year. So it was just a matter of time before we knew. But Wildcard also came out saying they were going to upgrade Ark 1 with an Unreal Engine 5 upgrade. And that sounded pretty decent. Obviously with all the delays, they wanted to bring something to the community. And they said that this new Ark Ascended will be free. But then Wildcard took a complete U-turn and released this statement saying that Ark Ascended would go with Ark 2 and cost $40 to $50 on PC. Now obviously people aren't going to be happy at all because you can't just say something's free and then say it's $50 the next week. So yeah, now clearly Wildcard had messed up big time, and also Snail Games stocks had dropped dramatically. So they most likely needed money ASAP for this new generation of Ark basically. If you didn't know, Snail Games basically owns Wildcard sort of, which is probably why Wildcard took so long to come out and say something about this disaster class of a statement. And the idea of microtransactions came into Ark, which kind of split the community. One side don't want it, one side do, because it could be another source of income for Wildcard instead of charging so much for like DLCs and for obviously Ark Ascended.
With Survival Ascended, which a lot of people don't like, but I think a skin shop similar to like what Rust has, especially if they, involve the community in it, would be a really welcome idea. It would give a passive revenue stream so that they wouldn't have to keep making paid DLCs or weird mid-upgrade.
Wildcard did then release a statement talking about how they've realised the community's anger and they've separated the bundle from Ark 2 and Ark Ascended, so you can just get Ark Ascended separately because we haven't got any gameplay of Ark 2 at all. So why would we want to buy the game before we even know what it's like? Which is a start from Wildcard, and a lot of people are pleased with this, but then again they would have to charge quite a lot less for Ark 2 to make this all worth it, really. And obviously all the Ark 1 servers are getting discontinued support, so that's another downside to this new Ark Ascended thing. But tell me what you think in the comments down below and your opinion on this whole situation. If you want more in-depth detail about this sort of thing, go and watch someone like Hod Gaming or Caesar who have gone into Snail Games and into the situations with Wildcard. But that's enough waffling from me. Is Ark dead? Tell me what you think. I'll see you later. Bye.